Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WTF podcast for Steel City Underground. My name is Terry Fletcher, and it's week 4 in the NFL. So where do I start this week? Boy, I don't know. Do I want to start with fantasy? No, I think I want to start with something the Steelers really had to think about in the offseason, and I just don't believe they did. Probably one of the worst offseason moves, in my opinion. Now, again, this is all commentary and opinion based on what we see, what we're reading, what we hear, what we research. I think not re-signing Jesse James, regardless if he was just a respectable or pedestrian tight end, was probably the worst decision they made. McDonald always plays hurt, and he's always gets hurt. So he's out more than he's in. When he's in, he's a Mack truck, but it's just a guessing game if he's going to be in. We traded our 5th round pick that we got from the Raiders for Antonio Brown for Vannett. So Nick Vannett is a new tight end from Seattle. He actually did a great job with McDonald out and Xavier Grimble on IR on Monday Night Football. He tweeted out he hasn't had that much fun in a while, so we love that, but that was a last-minute stopgap, and he had to learn the playbook in just a few days, 4 days I think it was. And so even though we do have somebody now that looks solid, I'm telling you that we need a backup. We need another tight end to fill that position. Remember what a tight end is. It is a blocking wide receiver. And even though Juju does a good job, we need him out there catching balls more than we need him blocking. So we need to have some tight end love there, and we'll get that soon. But that was a kind of a big WTF for me when I'm thinking, oh my gosh, McDonald's out again, and what are we going to do? So that was a great grab there. But Thursday night football, let's go there. So Philadelphia at Green Bay. Well, first, you're going to hear my petty side come out, and you're probably going to be like, okay, Terry, WTF on that. But I don't know how many times we have to hear the media before they use the phrase, quarterback Aaron Rodgers, before they say his name. The media always seems to preface that with arguably the greatest quarterback who ever played the game. And I'm thinking, yes, he's got a great spiral. He's got a great dart when he throws that ball, won Super Bowl. But I get tired of it. He is a great quarterback, but he's not the greatest to ever play the game, arguably. And so my WTF moment, Green Bay had lost 34-27 against Philadelphia. And he was strip sacked at the 1-yard line late in the game. They didn't run the ball on 4th and 1. They did 4 straight pass plays. I'm still shocked that they would do that. That doesn't even make sense at the 1-yard line. At least run it once. And then not going for that field goal early. And then Rodgers threw a pick in the end zone with 20 seconds left in the game, down by 7. So if you want a WTF moment, he gave you plenty in that game. And I'm just like, you know better. What the heck are you doing? But I think the biggest WTF moment for Thursday night football, and I know that was last week, but that's how we start our week here at Steel City Underground, was for me, will they have enough stretchers for all the injuries? And I'm not trying to be flip about that. It was sad. It was one of the most brutal games I've seen in a while. Eagles cornerback Avonte Maddox, he collided with his teammate Andrew Sadejo while trying to tackle Packers tight end Robert Tonyan. Oh my gosh, immediately Maddox went down. He went limp and didn't move. My daughter and I were watching it, and we were just like holding our breath saying, okay, get up, get up. Luckily, the updates show that he has movement in all extremities and will be okay. He has a concussion and an unspecified neck injury, but it was really scary. He did not move, and you hate it when they just go limp and you're just staring at the TV saying, please get up. Also, running back Jamal Williams was also taken off the field in a stretcher in the first quarter. He had a helmet-to-helmet hit by Derek Barnett. Now, the thing about this one, as far as my WTF moment, you could tell the motion that Barnett was having as far as going towards the running back. He kind of put down his shoulder a little bit. Erin Andrews, I know she's clickbait when it comes to saying things on the fly, and she drives me insane. You may like her. She's not my favorite. But her comments, and she got blasted for it after, when you use the term the vicious hit, that shows intent. And it just fuels the fire for people saying, oh, he should be ejected or he's going to get fined. Of course, he's going to get fined. And I think on that one, there was a flag thrown. But let's face it, there was no intent there. He even went up to the player who was being carried out on the stretcher, sorry. I mean, he went up to him because he wasn't out there headhunting like another player that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But for her to say that is just sending the wrong message. There were 6 players hurt that did not return in that game. But remember, for those of you looking at football, watching it, being either at the games or watching it from afar on TV, whatever, when you get fined or when they're talking about the act of it, it's about the act and not about the result. So, I mean, let's face it, there's certain people that are going to get hit that are just tougher than others, and they're going to get up. And then there's others that you hit them and they're just down for the count. They're done. And so it's about the act. Was that hit vicious? Was there intent? Was it helmet to helmet? What was it? Versus did the player not get up and then let's throw a flag? That's not appropriate. And so it's about what they did, not the result. And just keep that in mind when you're looking at some of these hits, because it's easy to get emotional about it, but you kind of can't take that WTF too far and say, well, look what happened. You can't do that. You have to look at basically what they did and not the after the fact. Now, probably my biggest WTF for the week has to do with penalties. To me, one of the worst changes in the game, and I might have mentioned it last week, but this week was just ridiculous. And that is the OPI and DPI. So offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference, being able to review it. You are trying to review a subjective penalty. And in my opinion, they're ruining the joy of the game. Whenever there is a touchdown now, you can't celebrate. Not a fan, not anybody. You have to be like, oh, wait, let's see if there is a penalty before you can even celebrate it. Even the players do that. I don't know if you've noticed, but the touchdown celebrations have really kind of stopped. Even Juju's like, wait, is there a penalty? Okay, now let's see if we can celebrate a touchdown. But since week one, 4 touchdowns have been called back on that review, and 2 are from created PI calls not called first. And so they're saying now it's not that you can only review, a penalty that says it was or it wasn't. Now you can review that it wasn't called, which is just, okay, let's just say it. It's just stupidity. That is just ridiculous. And it's really affecting the game, in my opinion. And I was listening to Dean Blandino. He was the previous VP of the NFL for the rules and of operations. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, this just doesn't make sense. And why is the NFL so popular? Because of scoring and because of fantasy and players and teams they love. So you're really taking the love out of the game. Now that the officials and the NFL owners are taking that away and the games are so long now, it's really not football anymore. And it's too subjective. The thing they have to look at, does it really hinder the ability for the player to catch the ball? Well, it depends on the player. That's why it's subjective. Think about DeAndre Hopkins, arguably, in my opinion, one of the best wide receivers out there. How many different quarterbacks has he had? And he still puts up the numbers that are ridiculous. He can catch everything. But then you go to one of our lower level receivers, Dante Moncrief. Yeah, don't even get me started. He needs basket attached to his hands to make a catch. The NFL is so reactive instead of proactive, and it's just too subjective. A rule passed for one bad play in New Orleans. I mean, and this is the fix? This is not a fix. Remember in that New Orleans Rams game, yes, that was egregious, no question. But there were 2 face masks on Goff that they didn't call too. So there was all kinds of things they could have called in that game. And I just think the one team whining about it, I have a feeling this is a rule that's going to go away next year. I mean, it's just terrible. Because again, now I'm continuing on my soapbox here. Here's another WTF. You can't challenge a personal foul of ripping a guy's helmet off or clocking a quarterback or grabbing his face mask, a missed calls. But a coach can throw a flag for a 50-50 call on, was this a pass interference call? I mean, WTF on that? I mean, seriously, it's supposed to be player safety. Now you're saying it's not an issue? I'd actually like to see stats on how many players were fined after a game on personal fouls where no flags were thrown. So they really have to rethink that. I think officiating, replay moving to Skycam where they judge on every play. Is this what we want? This is what they're talking about. If you ever listen to NFL radio, that's what they're talking about. They're saying that there's a possibility they may get that Skycam out there and start doing it on every single play. So our 3-hour football game made now to be 4 hours. Now, I personally love football, so I'm sad when the game is over. But do you think the players want to be out there that long? Come on, people. WTF. So now the other one is the go for two. And if it doesn't work due to a penalty, teams are now being able to go for a field goal at a better spot. I don't think that's appropriate. I mean, there's so many rules right now that they could focus on that are not subjective, that are basically objective, meaning is that really fair? And so there's just some ridiculous things going on right now, and I really hope they clean it up soon. And the other thing is that the on-field judges, the referees, they don't seem to be making the call. It's really taken out of their hands now. It's all about New York. And so this is where the game has changed almost, 180 change. So let's look and see what happened in other games. So Tampa Bay and the Rams. So that was played in Los Angeles, which means Hollywood. There was no Hollywood ending there. Oh my gosh. 55-40, Tampa Bay won. Ridiculous game. Score after score. There was no defense on either side. It was a pretty interesting game to watch, but you know what? Good for Tampa Bay. They're not going to win many, and that was one of them. So I think Jameis Winston looked pretty good in that game. The Giants 24-3 over the Redskins, and quarterback Case Keenum just looks like the worst quarterback in the universe. And Dwayne Haskins was in. Now, Jay Gruden has to be fighting for his job. He's 0-4, and his team is just a mess. I know he wanted to, he was looking at having Smith as his quarterback, but at some point, you've got to figure it out. There's got to be a way to at least get the defense on board. Panthers have an interesting situation. So they won again, 16-10 with Kyle Allen starting. He's had 3 starts now. And he's winning, and Cam Newton is 0-8 in his last starts. And so is there a quarterback controversy there, even though Cam is hurt? Well, I think there is. One of the things, Christian McCaffrey was on NFL radio this morning, and I don't know if anybody caught it, but they asked him about Cam and has he been around the facility, kind of like Ben now that he just had surgery, and how has he been around the guys, how has he been supportive, because remember, they have not given Cam a time frame to come back, so he's looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks with the high ankle sprain that doesn't need surgery. But the one thing that Christian said, which I thought, okay, I wonder if anybody's going to notice that, my WTF moment. He said he's been great. He's been around. He's been helpful. And he said, we're all excited for his recovery, but they didn't say for his return. And I don't know if anybody caught that, but I did. And I was like, okay, I see you. So that was how to make a positive spin on something that they're like, we're winning now. So we'll stick with what we're doing. The Patriots, I hate mentioning the Patriots now that they're 4-0. They had a win over the Bills, but they only won 16-10. It was actually a really good game, but one of their defensive players took out the Bills quarterback, Allen. So that was brutal. And Brady only scored 4 points on fantasy, so some people were not happy there. I think they thought that was going to be another 50 burger blowout, and it wasn't. So it was interesting just to see when they have to go up against a decent defense, what actually happens. But they're just rolling along, so let's move on from them. So the Browns over the Ravens. So that was on Sunday night. I was pretty happy about that. Mainly because what was really nice about that is that 40-25, the Ravens, remember, were looking at trying to get to 3-1, which would put them at the top. But the AFC North thanks you. The Steelers thank you, Browns, because now that puts them both at 2-2. With the Browns beating the Ravens makes them first in the NFC North, and that's just going to be temporary. But that only helped the Steelers. So we're actually only 1 game back now. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. The Jags 26-24 over Denver. Fournette rushed for 225 yards. I mean, talk about fantasy points at 32. Flacco's the same in Denver as he was in Baltimore, so I don't see that going anywhere. But the Jags pulled it out. Now, for them, known for their defense, That is a pretty high scoring game for defense. I think somebody had them on defense recently that this past weekend that said they only got 4 points. I had them last week on defense, and I ended up with 30 points. So, it is a crapshoot every week. Everybody knows that. So let's get to the player that was absolutely fined, and now he is suspended, thank goodness, for the rest of the season, and that would be Vontaze Burfict. Now, of course, this is no surprise. If you go back and take a look at what he did, he had a late hit on Indy tight end Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle caught the ball on the ground, was on his knee, getting ready to get up, and you could tell he was already a little bit kind of wobbly. Burfict takes 3 steps towards him, and then helmet to helmet hit knocks him out. I'm just like, get this guy out of here. Get him out of the league. What is it going to take? And I think my WTF moment on this one was, okay, people might be not like this, but there is somebody who's now been, when John Gruden went to the Raiders as a coach, they promoted, his name's called Booger McFarland. Who wants their name being Booger? But he is now one of the Monday Night Football commentators. And he said something last night that was just, come on, and moronic. He said 3 times was a pattern. Dude, how many times has he laid vicious hits? Do your homework, or don't be a commentator. Let me remind you, in case you don't know, 13 suspensions, fines in excess of $415,000 in 7 seasons. The NFL finally said, if you don't listen, this is going to escalate to, basically, they call it escalated accountability measures. And 3 steps to a player who's down already that you could have just touched to stop him and avoided the collision, he's out for the rest of the season. And I think it's sad that it took this many times. I mean, talk about getting 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and obviously 13 chances. And he's appealing. That's got to be what the football. Dude, just take your medicine and you look for another job. I'm sure somebody needs a haircut or at a barbershop somewhere, but this is just ridiculous. He needs to be out of there. He is headhunting. He is trying to hurt people, not stop the ball, not win games, but just hurt people. And so that's really, it's sad, but finally somebody heard it. And then Sunday Night Football, New Orleans over Cowboys with Bridgewater, 12-10. When on the 4th down second, a Hail Mary was done, or they could have done a 70-yard field goal, the Cowboys, to try and win the game. That was the weirdest decision ever. The Hail Mary gave Dak Prescott no chance to get it in the end zone. And that's what you do with a Hail Mary. You've got a ton of people down there, a ton of players, and they're putting in, obviously, their tallest players to try to catch the ball in the end zone. There's 2 seconds left. You don't have any time to do anything else. And he was going to be at least 10 yards short. I mean, try for the 69, 70-yard field goal. You've got the same situation. You might make it, you might not, but they practice those in between the game. So it's something that I just thought was just kind of a really bad decision to try that, because there was just no time to make that happen. And remember, this is the one thing that I don't like, another thing I don't like, I should say, about the pass interference challenges. What's going to happen with the Hail Marys? So they don't call those. And look at what that is. Everybody's fighting for the ball. And I guarantee you, if they slowed that down like they're doing now with the DPI and the OPI, they're going to see that there's quite a bit of pass interference with everybody hitting everybody to try to get the ball over the top. So I just think that was crazy. But there's a couple of things so Monday Night Football, let's come to the Steelers. So we won. I'm very excited about that. 27-3 over the Cincinnati Bengals. So we won a division opponent, but we had won the last 16 Monday Night Footballs. So we were pretty much, I don't want to say in the bag to win, but we were. But and Cincinnati's just playing really bad football. We lost an OPI challenge. As soon as Mike Tomlin threw that out there, it was just so obvious we were going to lose. He doesn't win those. Mike just needs to keep the red flag in his pocket, unless it's something that it's just for sure, a spot he wants to check. But it has to be clear and obvious. And there was maybe a touch on the player. They let it stand. There was no push and there's no separation, but you could tell the player sold it, because there was just a tiny little bit where he looked like he lost his footing for the push off, because they called the OPI. There wasn't, and that was just ridiculous. But who had the best night? And that would be Jalen Samuels. This guy, oh my gosh, his stats. he's just really coming into his own. And I think actually it's because Mason Rudolph is really focused on him. He dove for a marker on a 3rd and 9 in the 4th quarter to get the first down. And basically, he just wanted the first down more than the defender wanted the tackle, and he made it happen. But he became one of 4 players, because we did a lot of Wildcat last night, so that was kind of crazy. But he became one of 4 players in the past 10 years to throw for 25 plus yards, rush for 25 plus yards, and have 25 plus yards receiving in a single game. The only other person to do that, or players to do that, would be Julian Edelman, Christian McCaffrey, and Cam Newton. So that was a pretty cool stat for him. One of the things I noticed about our game last night, and we were actually laughing watching the game because it reminded me of the kids playing backyard football. And so I was just like, what the football are they doing out there? It was very dink and dunk, short little passes. And then luckily the players that were getting those passes were doing a really good job with the yards after the catch. But it was just really again, dink and dunk football, just moving the ball. And we were moving the ball. It started out a little slow, but then really picked up momentum. And shout out to our defense. Oh my gosh, 8 sacks on Dalton. That guy's going to need some ice. And hard ones. One of the best parts, and this is where I'm going to send it back, and I promised, or at least I said I promised, I wasn't going to mention AB anymore. But you know what? Our current team MVP, Juju, held to only 3 catches, but mic'd up with ESPN and talking and supporting everyone, asking them what they're going to do after the game. He was the first one to be excited about Deontay Johnson's long touchdown. And it was just so nice to see. That's what a leader does. When he fumbled at the beginning, he went over to him and said, hey, it's a long game. First quarter fumble. He's like, you know what? What you need to do. He showed him how to catch it, because they're going to rip it out. And because he's a rookie, he just said, do this. It's a long game. Keep your chin up. You're good. And so I just really liked seeing that. I'm glad that he wasn't upset as our number one receiver, not getting touches. And even Rudolph said at his post presser, yeah, he's been great. So supportive. Great. I need to get him more touches. That I definitely need to seek him out. So that was awesome. And then our cornerback, Devin Bush, I think he is going to be our defensive rookie of the year, not just for the team, but I think in the league. Just through week 4, he's had 37 tackles. That is 9th in the NFL, 24 solo tackles, 10th in the NFL, 1 sack, 3 fumble recoveries. And he is just really just crazy out there and what he's doing. And his fumble recoveries is 1st in the NFL. So it's, thank you, Zach, for that. A shout out to one of our SCU writers and podcasters as well for that stat. And Mason Rudolph, look at his stats through 2.5 games of starting. He's 50 for 74, 515 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 103.2. I mean, what the football in a positive way. We had such a good Monday Night Football. I was so happy to finally have some really good news. Shout out to our fearless leader, Joe, who told me to play my Steelers defense on my money fantasy league that I did win. Also won my subdivision, both my money leagues. So I was pretty excited about that with all my Steeler players, their defense and everything. So it's been a good week 4. And so the WTF, that's it for me this week. Steel City Underground. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Until next week, this is Terry Fletcher. Everybody make it a great week and a great day.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.